The intro will be useless to this video, so I'm going to skip through. Today I want to look at a video made 6 years ago today about a guide that explains why humans are the heroes in Avatar. Despite the RDA assaulting Pandora and using violence and manipulation to the Na'vi, according to generational films, this is being a savior. Let's take a look.
Hi friends.
No.
Pantora was a strange new world for humanity. Although there was oxygen in the atmosphere, high levels of carbon dioxide made the air toxic for humans to breathe in. The moon was covered in massive jungles full of all sorts of exotic and dangerous flora and fauna. The RDA first encountered the locals known as the Na'vi. These were extremely tall humanoids that lived in hunter-gatherer communities. Their tech level was equivalent to the Earth's Paleolithic epoch. Initially, the RDA attempted to communicate with the Na'vi, but the cultural and language differences made this almost impossible. Eventually, the Avatar program was created, which allowed humans to pilot Na'vi bodies and live and walk amongst the Na'vi without endangering humans to hostile environments and occasionally hostile Na'vi. The RDA even set up schools to teach the Na'vi about human culture and language with varying degrees of success, but ultimately this exchange of ideas ended up in failure as the Na'vi continued attacking RDA outposts and vehicles. This unfortunately led to the massacre of several young Na'vi hunters at one of the schoolhouses after they had torched several bulldozers. The RDA had hoped by being able to communicate with the Na'vi, they would be able to negotiate terms and peacefully mine on the planet.
Okay, I believe you were very close, but you excluded a few sections here. This is going to be long, but in 2142, 10 years before the destruction of Home Tree, Neytiri was 8 years old. Grace developed a close relationship with Neytiri's mother, Mawat, and her main goal was to create a bridge between humans and the Na'vi so that they could learn from each other. Mawat knew that more humans were coming to Pandora, and there was no escaping that. She wanted to better guide the younger Na'vi into this new future, and Grace even invites Mawat and the other Na'vi to take a tour of Hell's Gate. But eventually, the Omentakaya were exposed to a toxic chemical that was surrounding the colony. The RDA was dumping this toxic chemical into the water, and the animals of Pandora would drink this water, and then the Na'vi would hunt these animals and get sick. Neytiri, Silwanin, and the rest of the young ones would get sick from this goo. Mawat then found out later that this Siet Colleen flower had compounds that replaced the minerals that were leached out by the toxic chemicals. And Grace had a word with the RDA to stop dumping these toxic chemicals into the water supply. Later on in the new school, Grace teaches the young hunters how to read and write in English. And this would go on for 10 years. I'm going to play a clip from Bryce's Neytiri Explained video about what happens to Silwanin after the school situation. I'm going to try and shorten it as much as I can, but here it is.
Little tragic backstory about Silwanin. Grace would go on to explain that one day Silwanin just stopped showing up to school. She was angry about a clear cutting the RDA were carrying out. Silwanin and other Na'vi hunters attending Grace's school were fed up because it wasn't just this one clear cutting, it was a bunch of them being carried out all across the rainforest. Silwanin and the other hunters were in the activist stage of their youth, so they painted themselves in war paint and then destroyed a bulldozer, choosing the preferred method of setting it on fire. The RDA SecOps squad, seeing this, got fired up. So they tracked Silwanin and the other arsonists back to Grace's school. One of the SecOps shot Silwanin in the doorway right in front of Neytiri. Then the other SecOps soldiers proceeded to shoot and successfully eliminate the other hunters responsible for the bulldozer. The humans were not allowed back in the Omentakaya settlement. The loss of Silwanin left Neytiri bitter, a little bitter to say the least. This is why she is so willing to execute a Dreamwalker on sight.
Now, the Na'vi are often portrayed as beautiful, peace-loving species, but like most generalizations, they were far more complicated than the public's romanticization of them. For one, the Na'vi were massive compared to human beings. As adults, they grew up to 12 feet tall and were extremely strong and limber. A grown Na'vi could easily throw a human far enough to kill them.
Killing because something is dangerous is not always justified in some cases. It's like, I went to your house and killed you just because you were capable of holding a knife. Having power doesn't automatically make you dangerous because you could literally use it for anything. And in this case, these Na'vi have only ever killed for their food or for their defense. He also says that Na'vi have fired at human vehicles without warning. I mean, yeah, if I were to witness a large group of individuals who are known to massacre families because they were told no and are about to perform an assault on my land, I think I'd fire at them for our defense without warning too.
In truth, there was a lot that humanity could learn from Na'vi about their moon. We could have learned about the complicated bio-network that linked all life on Pantora together. But the Na'vi could have learned even more from us. Their society was extremely primitive, and although they had amazing rituals that could even transfer consciousness from one being to another, they didn't have a process like the scientific method to figure out and record their findings. It was for this reason why the Na'vi were still hunters and gatherers. Without the ability to grow food and develop agriculture, the majority of their people's energy was spent on obtaining food. Agriculture allows communities to have free time, during which new ideas and inventions can be created. This is how humanity formed things like laws or science.
The Na'vi have a very different culture from humans, and they know that. They aren't relying on wealth or advanced technologies to sustain themselves because they've been able to do so without it for generations. They were willing to learn about humans but rejected their offerings for things like education or fantasies about economic growth because there was no pressure to advance and nothing will be gained by doing so. They also are following the 3 laws of Ewa. You shall not sit stone upon stone, neither shall you use the turning wheel, nor use the metals of the ground.
Because of the structure of their society, the Na'vi warriors and hunters were valued above everyone else in the tribe. This meant that the strong young males could choose whatever women they wanted to be with. This was a society that valued strength and power above intellect and progress. The fact that there were very few elderly and sick people in their population goes to show you how hard life was. Life expectancy for the Na'vi was needlessly short in comparison to more developed societies. And again, this is because in primitive societies where physicality is more important than intelligence, oftentimes weaker and smarter individuals are not allowed to contribute to the tribe. And let's also not forget that the same tail neural network they use during mating sessions with each other, they also use on unsuspecting animals. We have a name for that on Earth, it's called bestiality.
Why do you keep erasing parts of the story? As said in the first movie, when a Na'vi links with other creatures such as a mountain banshee or dire horse, they are able to mentally communicate with each other, and therefore the Na'vi can use it to respectfully guide them while mounted. It's also not just done between creatures, it's also done with plants. The linking between 2 Na'vi is an essential part of their mating ritual because it intensifies their feelings together. But the act is not to be confused as sexual itself. I think you're just making it weird.
Pandora was a massive moon, closer in size to a planet than our own moon. The Earth has a diameter of 12,700 kilometers, while Pandora has a diameter of 11,447 kilometers. But the Na'vi population couldn't have numbered more than a few million. This was rumored to be because of a sentient intelligence worshipped by the Na'vi called Ewa. Ewa maintained a careful ecological balance on the planet and culled the Na'vi population if they grew too large in numbers. So this actually meant that there was plenty of room for the RDA and humans to settle and mine unobtainium.
Okay, so basically just, they're not using our land, so we should. Let's not forget that Avatar is also mirroring the history of colonization on our Earth. Saying that Pandora is big enough or they're primitive, they don't really own this land, is entitlement, and neither of those are even ethical arguments. Imagine someone walking into your home and saying, yo, you've got plenty of space, I'll just live here too. It's still not theirs to take. That house belongs to you and you never gave them permission. Why should anyone even have to be explaining this to you?
Now, the fact that some large sentient being was basically playing God and controlling all life on Pantora is actually quite terrifying. If the RDA scientists and xenobiologists had been allowed into the so-called sacred Pandoran neural network areas, they could have examined how it worked. They would have been able to expose their God as some very complex and perhaps malevolent creature. And although I understand the importance of creating a balanced ecosystem, I believe that no sentient being should get to decide whether another sentient being should or should not live.
Okay, let's learn about Awa. To put it simply, Awa is the biosphere. The Na'vi do not personify or worship non-living forces of the world, nor do they view her as a deity that creates and governs it. Awa defends and guides itself, but will not protect or favor an individual group over another. Michiru said this when talking to Jake.
Our great mother does not take sides, Jake. She protects only the balance of life.
How do you even miss this? In times of assault on the biosphere and the balance of life itself, she acts to protect it. We know this as something actually called self-defense. Shocking. So Awa is not a creature, she is a consciousness, and she is a neural network.
A lot of people who grow up in suburbs or in cities have a very romantic idea of what nature is. The idea of a Pantoran-like society where we all live at the mercy of nature or some godlike entity like Iwa might sound appealing to them. But the reality is quite different. While I agree what humanity has done to the earth and its natural beauty is horrific and one of our greatest failures, our scientific achievements cannot be overlooked. We as a species were born frail and without physical advantages that would help us survive. The only thing we ever had was a brain and some thumbs, which allowed us to build, create, and innovate. To not pursue the gifts that evolution has bestowed on us would be a great loss of potential.
Yes, humans have a lot of abilities. Building and creating itself is not necessarily the cause for the decline of our nature. It's how far we're going with it and what we're putting into it. It's not the fantasy of having an Awa-like deity or having a Pandoran society, and it's definitely not telling you to strip your clothes off and live on the grass. It literally just means don't overuse your abilities. It's not just gonna kill what's around you, it's going to kill you too. He also mentions that nature has danger. Yeah, no shit. I think they already showed that.
And before you judge the actions of the RDA, let me ask you this question. If your children or your loved ones or your family members were stuck on a dying planet, how far would you go to save them?
Definitely not massacre another group of individuals with families and children for something that we caused. Holy shit. Let's not forget that in Frontiers of Pandora, the RDA kills an entire clan and kidnaps the Sarentu children to create loyal soldiers. And somehow to people this is saving humanity. Anyways, I'm going.